Welcome to mtbradley. Do you wash your mountain bike? If you find yourself wondering how to wash your mountain bike, watch to the end of the video to learn my 8 tips for washing mountain bikes. For more mountain bike tips, reviews, and trail rides, subscribe to my channel, tap the bell to be notified when I upload a new video every Thursday. Mountain bikes are rad! You should get one! As an outdoor professional, I've helped thousands of people recreate outside, and mountain biking was just one of those activities. Now, it's time for me to help you. Why do we wash our bikes? Well, for some, it's so their bikes look great. For others, it's more about functionality. There's even a small group of people out there who never wash their bikes. Personally, I like a clean mountain bike. But I will say there's something about a dirty mountain bike that speaks to the passion that people have for mountain biking through all kinds of conditions. It makes them seem more hardcore and dedicated. A question I've gotten over the years is how do we wash our mountain bikes if we want to avoid getting water into certain areas where it will cause damage? By washing our bikes, aren't we inherently getting water into those areas? I often respond with it depends on how we wash it. If we use a high pressure hose or a pressure washer and blast our bicycle, yes, we'll definitely get water into places we don't want water on our mountain bike, like the pivots, front suspension lowers, headset, bottom bracket, and hubs. A high pressure hose sends water into these places which will cause damage to the bearings over time. If you have internally routed cables through your frame, you have openings that allow cables and water inside your frame. If we get water inside our frame, how does it get out? A little bit of moisture doesn't hurt anything and will evaporate out of the frame. However, if we blast these areas, we're introducing large amounts of water into the place that may not have a drain, and this may lead to damage if we can't get that water out. As you see here, I'm spraying degreaser on the drivetrain first. That way it has time to penetrate and loosen up some of that grease to make cleaning a bit easier later. Don't forget to wash your wheels and clean off excess mud and dirt. You want to take care of your wheels so they spin true. Excess mud and dirt may add stress to your rims and spokes. Even if it doesn't, this is extra weight, which means you'll have to work harder to ride your mountain bike. Dirt and mud on the drivetrain and suspension system accelerates the wear and tear of those moving parts when you leave it on for a prolonged period of time. Mud and dirt you collect over a single ride isn't a big deal. A little mud left on the frame isn't a big deal either, and is even kind of cool because it tells other riders around you that you're rad and you ride hard. Now that we know that cleaning the mud, dirt, and grime off our bike will help increase the lifespan of our mountain bike drivetrain and components, let's get into my 8 steps for cleaning a mountain bike. Tip number 1, it's okay to use a hose. Just don't use the hose to blast areas of your bike that have bearings. Most bearings are sealed nowadays, but you can still get moisture into the sealed bearings blasting it with water. A hose is a great way to wet down the mountain bike and soften up that dirt, which leads me to tip number 2. Tip number 2, get your entire bike wet. You need to get the bike and the dirt wet so the dirt comes off. You can probably remove large chunks of mud brought to your bike by simply breaking it off with your hands, but be careful around sensitive areas like the drivetrain. Using too much force can break things. While it's nice to use a hose, don't stand there and spray copious amounts of water at things like the pivot, headset, bottom bracket, or hubs, even if you're not using a high pressure hose. This is unnecessary and may introduce moisture into sensitive areas that eventually leads to damage when the moisture displaces the grease and you have metal bearings rubbing against other metal bearings. Tip number 3, use soap or degreaser to clean everything. Don't be afraid to use soap to clean the bike and degreaser to clean your drivetrain. It will help you clean off the dirt and grime buildup. If you have a chain cleaning tool, use it. This works great. I had one, but it recently broke, so I'm not using it today. After using soap or degreaser, always rinse those chemicals off the bike. In a previous video, we went over the gear all new mountain bikers should have. Click the I to access that video, and look in the description below to download that free checklist. Tip number 4, use different brushes for the drivetrain versus the braking system. If you have several brushes, it's even better to use one on the bike, one on the drivetrain, and a different one on the braking system. Doing this will help you keep the grease and oil on your drivetrain from being introduced to areas you may not want it, like your fork stanchion uppers, disc brake rotors, and pads. To help prevent the spread of the unwanted grease and grime, wash these areas last and use a separate brush. Tip number 5, rinse everything off. After cleaning the areas of your bicycle, rinse them with water to remove any excess dirt, soap, or degreaser. Just remember not to blast areas of your bike with the water. Tip number 6, use an air compressor to dry everything. You can certainly towel off your bike, but the air compressor makes quick and light work of removing the water. It works fine for the frame, but it really excels on the drivetrain, brake pads, and rotors, bottom bracket area, shifters, triggers, and letters. When you use the air compressor on the fork stanchions, be sure to blow water sideways off the stanchions. points, otherwise you might push moisture inside the lowers and that would be no good. Tip number 7, allow everything to dry before applying lube. The worst thing you can do is lube your drivetrain before it dries completely. If you don't have an air compressor, set your bike in the sun for 30 minutes to an hour so the areas that require lubrication can dry out. Removing the moisture will allow the lube to penetrate all the areas you want it to. Lubrication reduces friction and thus wear and tear, especially on moving parts. Apply the appropriate lubrication to various parts of your mountain bike. What do I mean by this? Well, don't apply chain lube to the upper stanchions of your fork. Use a lubricant specifically formulated to keep the uppers lubricated and the seals supple. Use your chain lube on your chain. The small pivot points on your derailleur can be lubricated with chain lube. If you have specific questions about how to lube specific parts or components or what type of lube to use, consult the manufacturer's recommendations for the part or component in question. I check my chain stretch every time I wash my bike. Letting a chain stretch too much will wreak havoc on your drivetrain and will require you to replace your chainring and cassette. This is expensive and unnecessary. The Park Tool Chain Checker is inexpensive and does the job well. Once your mountain bike is clean and lubricated, it's ready to ride. So get out there and shred. When your bike gets dirty, just give it a bath. Your bike will appreciate that you take care of it. It will thank you by staying in good working condition as long as it can. At some point, parts wear out and need replacing. This is the nature of mountain biking and moving parts. However, there are things we can do to keep our trusty steed running for a long time. A bath and a little lubrication go a long way. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you on the trail. Check out these videos where you can learn how to improve your mountain biking skills. If you're new to mountain biking, you want to get your hands on my free checklist that covers the gear you need for a trail ride. This checklist will fast track you to feeling confident for your first ride. Look for the link to this free checklist in the description below. If you learned something, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friend. Tap the bell to get notifications for my next video. Until next week, I'll see you on the trail.